Hello, so today, kind of as an update to some of the tier lists I do on my channel, I'm going to be doing kind of like a mid-set analysis of all of the traits in the current set. I'm going to talk about the traits, how playable or how useful I think they are to activate, things like that, and how common I think the boards are within my repertoire of what I want to play within a given game. If you like my content, make sure to like and subscribe, because normally I'm doing daily TFT guides. It's around the mid-set update, so some of the tier lists that I was making, like the last time I ranked traits was back in like early August, so I thought it would be a good thing to go through all the traits and kind of give like a refresher of all of different comps that you can play. But typically I'm doing guide style content. I'm going to be doing the updated item guide starting tomorrow with like a little 3-part series over the weekend, so make sure to check that out. And then I also have my VOD channel. If we get to 1,000 subs on the VOD channel, I'll do an RP giveaway, so make sure to check that out as well. Let me clear this board and let me go through some of the traits. So, Battle Academia, I think a solid B tier, right? B to me is average. This means like if you have a good spot for it, you can play it. If you have a bad spot for it, you know, it's going to be a bad spot, right? I don't think you should dwell too much on the letters and stuff. What I mean by Battle Academia is that if you have the units and you have a good spot for them, good items, good enablers, fruits on the units, early copies of reroll, I think you can have success with the comp, right? So it's definitely a comp that can be put into the repertoire, can be played on current patch and in the current set, but it's just not overbearing, right? Before there was a lot of stuff with like the Yuumi Prodigy boards. Prodigy and Yuumi, that whole line kind of got dismantled in some of the recent patches. So I would like to see it become more prevalent. Right now it's like really awkward. It feels as though if you hit like a Yuumi 2, Leona 2, Cassante 2, like if you hit everything, you play it from a really advantageous position and you're uncontested and you hit everything, this comp can still play for like a first or a second and even win lobbies. It's just that you really want to have all the upgrades, because without Yuumi 2, Leona 2, I feel like you neither have the damage or the tankiness to make this comp really survive. Something that's more common with Battle Academia that's still prevalent right now is Caitlyn reroll, right? Usually you would just play Vertical Battle Academia and then playing around Caitlyn reroll. This board, how like it's not necessarily the strongest board, but this is a board that can beat literally anybody, because Caitlyn basically snipes the backline, does a bunch of damage. If you position in your little weird ways, you know, like you split the front line and the Caitlyn gets like an easy snipe to the back line, there's actually really good potential that you can beat any board. It doesn't matter how strong they are. They could be like a Giga Crystal Gambit. They can be like a insane like whatever. If you kill their enemy carry and they lose all their damage, it's GG. The game's over. So this board is still something that's threatening. If somebody's playing in your lobby, you're still going to struggle with it. And it's going to be something you have to take into account and respect. So for that, that's what I mean. Like between like the Yuumi board sometimes being playable and obviously the reroll line being prevalent, Battle Academia, I think this is a good spot, right? Ideally, in a perfect world, I would say like all the traits are like somewhere around B-A tier and nothing's like obnoxiously broken or like horribly bad, horrifically bad. Anyways, Crystal Gambit, I think I want to put an A tier just for its win-out potential. Crystal Gambit's a little bit weird. I think this set in particular, one of the things that's really, like, I wouldn't say it's frustrating, but something that kind of sucks, is how bad lose streak feels. Crystal Gambit, a lot of times you can just play it in one of two ways, right? You either want to play it for like the full Crystal Gambit where you're playing 7 Crystal Gambit with an emblem and you win out, or you want to play just to get like some sort of cash out and then use that to augment or play around whatever board you want to play. The problem is that whenever you lose streak, there's so many like Exodia win conditions right now. Like I feel like there's artifacts that are really broken, radiant items on certain units because of power-ups could be broken, and then obviously certain power-up combinations with units are still like obnoxious and just like easily can just make them win out for free, like these Exodia type of spots. Because of that, I really don't like playing around Crystal Gambit as a lose streak. But then why am I putting in an A tier? The reason I'm putting in A tier is obviously because Crystal Gambit does have this crazy win condition, where if you hit 7 Crystal Gambit, obviously you need an emblem to do that, you get this constant cash out of rewards, you get a good amount of HP and damage amps, so your units are extremely tanky, and often it's a win out. Obviously you need an emblem and a Zyra to do that, so it's a little bit awkward. You need to like kind of build yourself a lead in the mid game a lot of the times and play more of like a Crystal Gambit win streak and stuff. But it is still something that can easily win out, and 7 Crystal Gambit is devastating, right? If you have a 7 Crystal Gambit player in your lobby, if they survive 1 or 2 rounds that they start to cash out their rewards, they just instantly outcap anything. It's like could easily be the strongest in the game. It's just a matter of like taking the time to get those cash outs. So because of that, to me, it has to go in A tier. I don't think it's as average. I think, like, you know, if you see a Crystal Gambit emblem opener, or if you see it on like a target dummy or something, it's always like on that level of I can play this and potentially win out. It's just more of a risky play, but I think that on average, it has the potential to be very good. So I put in A tier. Luchador, I think Luchador is kind of mid. They kind of rework Luchador a little bit. Luchador, you get like a stun, it heals your units, they get extra AD. Before there was a patch, like it was very short-lived. There was like, I think I had a lot of fun, because I remember when I started talking about this set, I was like, I want to play Luchador. I think Luchador is going to be cool. I'm so excited for Luchador. I want to play Luchador. And there was like 1/2 of a patch. It was like 15.2C, like between the C patch and the D patch. And it was like 3 days where Volibear was like the kingpin. Maybe it was the B patch. I don't remember which patch exactly. But it was like, it was so good. And then they just like axed the units and they reconstructed them the way they work. And then there was like this new patch like recently that made it so that the Luchador is no longer like properly de-aggro and stuff like that. So it feels very lackluster. Now obviously fitting into Luchador is still going to be good, but you're never really angling your whole comp to play around it. It's more of like a nice to have if you're capping out around Braum, or a nice to have if you're playing a Volibear with like an Edgelord kind of build on your board. But like in general, I feel like it's not something where it's like, oh, this is a 4 Luchador game, I want to play 4 Luchador. The only time it really matters is maybe Mundo Hero Augment, then you're like really dedicated on the Luchador train. But it just feels like kind of like eh. And I put that in like the B tier, right? It's obviously good in spots. You obviously want to splash it in when you can, but it's not something you're going to angle your whole game plan around. Mentor's hard to rank for me right now, because the Mentor line got a little bit like broken up recently. So like before, I would say Mentor was like somewhere up here and then like here. I think Mentor is somewhere around A tier, because Mentor, I think, always has use. Pretty much any board that you're playing, you want to try and play one of these Mentor units a lot of the times, just because it's a team-wide buff. So to me, it's like A tier just by nature of it always being on a board, right? If you're playing a Juggernaut board, you're playing, or a Duelist board, you're playing Udyr. If you're playing any heavyweights, you're playing Kabuko. If you're playing any Edgelords, you're playing Yasuo. You're always trying to slot in one of these Mentors because they give you a team-wide buff. And then obviously the 4 Mentor line, it's a lot weaker right now, but it's still something that's prevalent on the current patch. If you have a spot for it, if you high roll, or you get like a good amount of econ that you can hit Rise to, and you can hit the Jarvans and all of that, then it's still a playable comp. It still works out well. It still caps pretty high. There's still mentor related augments that can work out pretty well, like Teacher's Council or whatever and stuff like that. So I think it's still in that A tier just by nature of like the 1 trait being really good, and then the 4 trait still being a strong 4 cost comp that you can play around. Mighty Mech is hard to rank, but I'm going to put it also in A tier. I think Mighty Mech right now is really good. It's really good on the current patch for 2 reasons. A lot of the lines that use 3 Mighty Mech are pretty strong. And then also 7 Mighty Mech is extremely powerful. It just got buffed a lot, like a lot of these little buffs to Mech. Basically, when you think about Mighty Mech, what's great about Mighty Mech is that it's very good early game. Right? If you start your game off with 3 Mighty Mech, you're basically getting an extra unit that has around 1000 HP on your board. In early game boards where people don't have a lot of gold, people don't have a lot of unit upgrades, people don't have a lot of items, this is often very strong for your stage 2. It can often let you win streak, or you can at least win a couple rounds just off the base of you have a whole extra frontline unit. So these type of summon-y traits where they summon an extra unit, they're usually very good early game. That usually sets you up to have an advantage for your mid game and your late game. You have gold, you have HP, you can make decisions, right? And that's really powerful. So Mighty Mech is definitely nothing to sneer at. Then obviously 3 Mighty Mech is just a great way to add yourself a little bit of extra frontline in no matter what comp you're playing, right? Like we can go back to the Mentor board, for example. A lot of times Mentor, obviously there's really good synergies with the Mighty Mech units, but the Mighty Mech, just having 3 in is just very nice, because a lot of times you're getting an extra frontline unit, and that just gives your whole board some breathing room. It's basically like a target dummy that you get for free by just playing units that synergize. And the Mighty Mech units themselves, they have great synergies, right? Aatrox is a 3 trait, right? He has Mighty Mech, but then he also has 2 of the frontline synergies, Juggernaut and Heavyweight. You have Jarvan with Strategist that buffs your whole board. Stuff like this works out really nicely, and I think that's a pretty well-designed trait. The thing that makes it extremely strong, however, is also the options we have with 7 Mighty Mech. So 7 Mighty Mech, obviously you need to hit, I don't know who I'm missing. I'm just gonna click everybody. Bro, how do I keep doing, I keep like, I already like tried to record this video once, and I had the same problem where I couldn't keep track of who I'm missing, and I just waste so much time. Who am I missing? I'm missing Lucian. There we go. 7 Mighty Mech. So 7 Mighty Mech, what's great about this is that the mech itself becomes a carry. Now 5 Mighty Mech is really shit. That's the big problem, right? 3 is great because it's just a free unit and it's usually can just fit into your board for free. 5 Mighty Mech is really shit because then you're just playing a bunch of units that don't really synergize with each other because they're more for like, as you can see, if you put all the Mighty Mechs on the same board, you know, besides these 2 units that share Sorcerer, they're not really like synergizing nicely with each other, so it's like a little bit of an awkward situation. There's not units that really tie this board together very nicely, in my opinion, like either frontline or backline, so it's a little bit weird, right? So 5 Mighty Mech is especially bad. It just feels like really awful to ever play. It's always feels like the wrong decision. But then 7 Mighty Mech, this mech becomes a carry. So now we've changed our summon from being like a random unit to being like a full-on carry. And it's really good on the current patch. It just requires you to find the Yone. So because of that, I think because 7 Mighty Mech is actually really strong, and it's not just like a 3 Mighty Mech trait bot, I would just put it into A tier. Monster Trainer, I think, is C tier. I know I'll probably like make people upset with this ranking, but I play a lot of the monsters, and I genuinely think they suck. I think they take way too long to level. I think they can't keep up with the other comps right now, and I think it's been like that for multiple patches. There was like a couple patches ago where Smolder was really good, and I played a lot of Smolder. Kog'Maw, I think, sucks without artifacts. Smolder, I think, sucks without artifacts. Rammus, I think, sucks now because Kai'Sa was like the best comp for him, and now Kai'Sa sucks. It's just awful. And I think the biggest problem is like they have to have this scaling method where you have to hit them early. And they tried to change the EXP, and they're like, you can play them whenever, and you really can't. You have to play them starting on stage 2. Now, I'm sure that some people have a lot of success with Monster Trainer. The thing about Monster Trainer is that it will constantly get stronger. Now, I put in C tier. You might think that's really strong. You might play it all the time and have success with it. That's totally fine. Because the thing is, if you're in a lobby where you're not getting punished, or you're in a lobby where you're able to make it into later stages of the game, right? You make it to stage 5, you make it to stage 6, you will eventually outscale everybody because the monster is constantly getting stronger. It's a scaling comp, right? So if your lobby allows you to scale, then all the Monster Trainer boards are going to be broken. They're going to feel broken. They're going to be strong. The problem is, the better you get at TFT and the better the players are in your lobby, the more punishing they will be. They will slam items early. They will take strong augments. They'll play aggressively. And the more aggressive and powerful your lobby becomes, the harder it becomes to scale. And that's the problem that I find. In my lobbies, every time somebody clicks Monster Trainer, unless they have an insane artifact situation like Dawn Core Kog'Maw, even some of the quote-unquote good artifacts don't even win out that many times, you often just lose. You're dead before you even reach your full board. It's a really fine line on what a good Monster Trainer spot is and what isn't. And I'm pretty sure that stats agree with me, because they're actually changing Monster Trainer next patch. If you don't know, I think they're going to remove the entire scaling aspect of it, which kind of, in a way, makes it like kind of defeat the purpose a little bit. It feels a little bit like like wah. But like, we'll see if that fixes it. But like, this whole thing just doesn't function well enough that they're completely reworking it next patch. And maybe next patch it will be broken, but as of right now, it's like, you know, me and even the game itself, the balance team acknowledges that this is kind of like, it's kind of in a bad spot. So, C tier. Rogue Captain, this is a TF one. Scales TF and gives you loot. I think it's definitely up there. I would put it in A tier. I think TF is a great unit to put in just to gain that extra juice. So it actually is pretty powerful. And then obviously if you hit crew, it really helps out with that crew. But this often you can win out with the TF. I put in a similar as Crystal Gambit. I think it's in that A tier. Rosemother, this is the Zyra plant. I think Zyra is still great with their plant summon. I think that deserves to be an A tier as well. These 5-cost traits are a little bit awkward because whatever. Soul Fighter, like, I think it's like kind of here, but low-key I think it's here. Like, the thing about Soul Fighter is that it's really good early game. It's really good mid game. But then you just fall off so hard if you don't have 8 Soul Fighter in your like stage 4, stage 5 area. and it just feels so lackluster. I think the fruits are very particular on Samira as well, and she's one of the hallmark units. I think the reroll lines are kind of bait a little bit, but I think on current patch, it is one of the better playable comms, and I do stand by that. I personally don't like it because it feels like it's very high roll or low roll when you play Soul Fighter, so I really want to play it from ahead. I never want to play it from behind, which makes it like an even more limiting of a 4-cost comp. But compared to some of these other ones, it is something that is more frequently played on the current patch, so I definitely think it should be in that A tier as being like slightly above like what would be the average, so to speak. Stance Master, I don't really care. This is like Lee Sin counts as 3 different traits and stuff. I don't think it's broken or anything. It's more so just like you just use Lee Sin to cap out the board that you have the synergy for. I think Lee Sin as a unit is really strong, but the trait Stance Master, it's kind of like non-important, right? A lot of times the synergies that he's giving doesn't matter as much as the fact that you're just playing the Lee Sin anyways. So I don't know. I don't really care too much about this trait. Star Guardian, I think Star Guardian's B tier. Maybe it's here. I don't know. I would put it here, honestly. The thing about Star Guardian is that you really need to stack it with you have to have a good spot for Star Guardian for it to be A tier, in my opinion. I think Star Guardian is very easy to lose out, and it's very easy to go like just barely 4th with it. Because the problem with Star Guardian mostly is that they changed it so that like the lower Star Guardian bonuses now give you like more stats instead of like the higher trait Star Guardians. So playing a full Star Guardian board is a little bit awkward. The other thing that is how do I phrase this? It's like if you have augments that play into the Star Guardian bonuses, for example, you have an augment like Keepers, where it gives you shield. That stacks with the Nico, because Nico increases heals and shields. So by like augments like that, where they either give you healing or shielding or some other means that the Star Guardian can kind of stockpile that or like increase that, usually via the Nico, then I think it's like A tier. But if you don't have any of those combat augments, you really feel it, right? Jinx is broken. But Jinx is not broken because of Star Guardian. Jinx is just broken because Jinx is good, right? She's just a good unit. But I guess I'll put it next to Soul Fighter here. Also, I don't like these 5-cost traits being in here. How do we remove the 5-cost traits? Do we agree? And I'll rank them at the end. Agreed. We'll rank the 5-cost traits at the end because I think it clutters the board too much. Like, for me, like these 2 ones, I feel like you need a really good spot for as well. So I personally put them in like this B area. But I think just based on current patch, it's like they're definitely better on the current patch. But I feel like it's more because there's not much else to play type of beat. But maybe that's just me. Supreme Cell, I think, is B. I think that this works out pretty okay, but it's really down to like the quality of the units that you're playing. Obviously, like it gives a lot of damage amp. It gives you the execute. It's a cool idea and mechanic. But the spots that you have to play it in are literally just if you were playing Supreme Cell. Akali is fucking useless. Don't even try to convince me otherwise. Kaisa is pretty bad now as well. She's hard to play around unless you have like an insane opener for her. And then Darius is also really hard to play around because his fruits are really awkward sometimes. So it's kind of like very middling, but obviously if you have a good spot for it, you can easily win out. You can just play like 4 Supreme Cell Darius or Kaisa and you can still get a first, right? You just have to have a really good spot for it. It's similar to like Luchador, where it's like it's nice to play in sometimes, but not necessarily going to be crazy. Crew, I think, is B tier. Crew, I used to think was broken. Crew is kind of like, it's very 1st or 8th. Crew, if you're playing like low cost crew or low star level crew, it's really good, right? So like obviously if you play crew with Jin, right? Crew Jin to get like the free XP whenever you do your rerolls, that's great. Obviously that's gonna be really good. But the problem that I have with crew is that like the later crews, like the 4 crew and like hitting zigs and everything, it's so hard to do that. Like it's so easy to go 8th playing crew. And if you haven't, trust me, keep playing crew and you're just going to go 8th sometimes. It's so inconsistent because you need to hit everything. And it's expensive to hit everything. You can have an insanely good spot where you have a bunch of Malphites, a bunch of Sivers, and then you can low roll on Ziggs or low roll on Shen, and all of a sudden your crew spot goes from like looking like an easy first to just out of nowhere you're just dead. Like it is so easy to lose with this comp. And it's like, it's always out of nowhere. Now, obviously, there's augments that help with this a lot. Like Hefty Rolls is great. But like the better way to play crew is to just play 2 crew and play Jin, right? Like the better crew board is just the Jin board, right? Where you play Malphite, Sivir, and then you play Jhin, and you just play Jhin Protector Malphite, and Jhin becomes your main carry. Because you just use the crew for the crew bonus that helps you to hit everything, the XP and the free rerolls. Because then it works really well. But then, like, if you try and go for these ones, it's so hard. And it's so easy to lose. But then sometimes you just win for free. Because it's very first to eighth, right? If you hit a TF early, you hit everybody 3-starred, you're obviously winning the game, right? It has such a high cap because of the amount of damage these rockets do. But I'll put in B tier because I think you need a spot. Wraith, I think, is good. It's solid. I think that it's really good to just splash in now. I think it's in the same average tier, right? Crew, I'm talking about it from, like, it's very first or eighth. So, like, the parts where crew is bad, and the parts where crew is good. So it's in B tier because it averages out. Wraith, in my opinion, is way more consistent. It's way more towards the middle, right? You want to splash it in a lot, similar to like Luchador, because it just gives you a good chunk of extra damage. The Wraith units are still good, right? The Jhin, the Kaels. Malzahar is not as much, but Malzahar is still playable from spots. Like, I played Malzahar today once or twice. Like, one time I went 8th, but I feel like it was just an unlucky game. And then Varus obviously caps really high. It gives you some healing, gives you some damage. I think it's in a good spot, right? I wouldn't want to see Wraith more buffed. I wouldn't want to see it nerfed at all. I think it's in a good spot. I think the units are in a decent spot. Maybe a little bit of a buff to some of the other units like Malphite. Oh, sorry, not Malphite. Malzahar maybe. Like, maybe he's like... But I think that's more so just like the comp around him just feels worse. So, you know, I think it's a solid B tier. Bastion, I think, is also B tier. I think it's just a solid, like, frontline trait. I think that it's balanced pretty well. I think Bastions have a good place in the game right now, where if you play around them, you feel them being pretty strong, doing what they need to do. I think that 6 Bastion is pretty strong as well in certain spots. I think if you're playing like reroll, like Bastion Edgelord, for example, sometimes you see it and it does pretty well. So I'm down. I think it's pretty cool. I think it's pretty good. I think it's like solid, does what it has to do. B tier. Same with Duelist. I think Duelist is in a good spot. I think playing around Ashe is alright from certain spots. I think that it might be a little bit awkward because I think like there's too many threats on the board now that makes like Colossal Udyr a little bit awkward. But I think the trade itself, decent amount of attack speed that it gives. I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with it. I think that the 6 Duelist boards work out to be okay as well. And I think that it's just like either a trait that you want to splash in, trait that you want to play totally vertical. I think it's similar in like those Battle Academia in that like you just need a good spot for it and you can totally play around it and it's totally great. Edgelord I think is a little bit worse for wear. I put it in C tier personally. I feel like Edgelord is not that important for a lot of the boards that need Edgelords. Like, for example, with Samira, you care way more about 8 Soulfire than Edgelord, so it's not that important. Volibear as well, the Edgelord is, like, okay, but it's not that crazy. And then, like, playing around deep Edgelord, like 6 Edgelord, is very, like, eh. Yeah, like 6 Edgelord, like I said, it was really good that one patch when you were playing around Volibear. Now it's just, like, really, like, not important. The units really don't function in the 6 Edgelord area. Like, usually you're playing, like, you know, even with Volibear, like, there's some Bastion Volibear lines or Bastion Edgelord around Xayah lines that are more important, but you don't care too much about, like, the deep Edgelord trait. It's not, like, something crazy that you want to ever play 6 Edgelord. It feels like it's almost always a throw in those cases, and you'd rather just play other units. So because of that, I put in the same tier as, like, not that, like, you know, it's not something I want to play around as much. Executioner, I think it's in a good spot. Personally, I think like playing around Senna and Rise really kind of carries the trait. But this again as well, you don't want to play deep into Executioner, but sometimes it works out really well because it has a high cap. That's the thing. Like, Executioner is not that great. Like, you're not like you know, similar to Edgelord, you're not saying I want to play like around 6 Edgelord or blah blah blah, right? But like the thing is, like, if you get Executioner Lee Sin, he actually kind of pops off. And especially with deeper Executioner numbers, he actually does do quite a bit of damage. It's just kind of like, is it in that same Edgelord section, Executioner? I might put it here, right? Because Akali's bad. It's kind of like, if you value Lee Sin a lot in these types of boards, then it goes around here. But you're never really structuring it like that. You're usually like playing Mentor Rise, or you're playing like a Mighty Mech Senna or something, and not really trying to climb deep in Executioner. It's more like a nice to have because you have the synergies. So I guess I kind of treat it the same way as Edgelord. It's kind of over there. Heavyweight, solid. I think it does well. There's some comps that play it. It's good in low, it's good in high. Makes sense with a lot of the boards. The early game units are okay. Zach has placement, has positioning stuff. Has like roles to play as an early game unit. And then there's the Darius Jace line, which is a reroll line that still works out to be pretty well. Obviously, Poppy with 6 heavyweight, she also does pretty well. I think it's solid, just B tier. Same with Juggernaut. I think it's in that same echelon. Solid. Juggernauts used to feel like a little bit more broken. It's kind of still that way. Juggernauts are pretty much like a preferred frontline option. However, it kind of just became like between all of these, like Protector, I'll do Protector at the same time, right? They all kind of like got towards like this little central convergence, right? Bastion usually is like the high cap synergy because you obviously have the Braum, so 6 Bastion and some of the Bastion traits splashing in are really good. Heavyweight obviously has like good reroll potential because there's lots of different reroll lines that use heavyweights now, and it all kind of works out to be pretty well. And they were pretty reliable with the buffs that they got to 6 heavyweight to being like pretty tanky. Juggernaut is like all reliable. Hasn't really been changed, but it's really good at just sustaining a front line. When Juggernauts die, they heal each other, so they have like this little bit of a self-sustaining effect where the weaker units feel like they're worthwhile to play. So it's always going to be in that good spot. And then Protector, it got a little bit nerfed, but it's still in that good spot because obviously Cassante's a monster, and you have some good synergies here as well. So all of them, they kind of feel like they work with the boards that you want to play with them, and usually just comes down to like what board synergizes best with the particular traits. But all the frontline traits I think are in a good spot. I think great job with the balancing on these ones. I think the ones that used to feel really weak are now a little bit better, and the ones that felt really strong, they kind of just by nature of the way the set evolved, are in a good spot. Prodigy, I think it's B tier. It got nerfed a lot. It used to feel really good. Now it's kind of like eh. Like obviously the Yumi line, it's kind of tied to like Battle Academia, but it's potentially even C tier, but I would just put it around here. Sniper I think has lots of lines. Usually it's Jin reroll, but playing deep into Sniper in those lines is pretty good. You do get a lot of damage amp from it, so I think it's actually solid right now because of mainly the Jin reroll line. Sorcerer as well I think is pretty solid. It kind of went through like being broken, then it was really shit. I think now Karma Sork is pretty playable. It's actually pretty good to play around. It really relies on the Gwen a lot of the time in order to have like the damage and the throughput. But if you hit your max cap, it actually does perform pretty well. I just don't think it's like in that A tier because of how reliant it is on the Gwen. So I think it still falls itself over here. Strategist, I think Strategist is really good. Very good splash trait. Just gives a bunch of shielding, bunch of damage amp, and obviously if you're playing the Strategist units in any way, shape, or form, it gives them a huge amount of stats and damage amp and shielding, so it works out really well. Now let's rank these 5-cost traits. So obviously the Champ I still think is broken. This trait is absolutely absurd. It just gives you like a second lease at life, and I really don't like these type of things in the game, but of course, if you're a more for fun player, it's great. You get like little Poro fans, they follow you around. And you get lots of stuff. They nerfed it, obviously, so it gives less Poros, but I think it's still crazy and broken. Like, early Braum from, like, playing from ahead, it just makes it so hard to beat those players because they have so many second leases at life. Stance Master, I think, is, like, whatever, B tier, and then both of these, I think, are A tier. I think this would be my current landscape of the game. If I look at this, I don't really see anything that's, like, that much of a hot take or anything crazy. I think a lot of the comps are playable from really good spots. I think that their current balance, like the B patch especially, really brought us to like a nice little like flat line, like, you know, a lot of things have spots to play. I think that a lot of the comps are usually dictated by augments and fruits, right? There's a lot of fruits that are really hard to hit, that if you hit them, it makes the comp so much better. And the same thing with like power-ups. So I feel like that's like the way that the comps kind of distinguish themselves from each other. A lot of the comps that are really strong, it's usually by the means of having like some of those awesome power-up and augment combos that work really well with it. But of course, I think like most of the things are actually getting play. I've even seen a lot of like even of the lower ones, like the Edgelords and the these ones I rank as a bit lower. I've seen people do really well with boards like this. I think it's just like a less common of playing like deep into the verticals of these ones. But in general, that's how I kind of look at the balance so far, or like the traits. I mean, and I think it's a lot of stuff has gotten into a good spot, which is pretty nice. And it's not even halfway through the set, which is pretty cool. So I'm hoping that like the fine adjustments there's nothing that really sways any of the traits in a crazy way, maybe except for some of the ones that feel a bit weaker. Like I said, the monster trainer is getting a huge rework, so that's one of the ones that I think is probably the worst trait. If I had to rank all of the traits, I would say monster trainer is probably the worst one here. And that's getting reworked, so, you know, things are getting fixed anyways. Thanks for watching. Hopefully it was a nice little touch-in, nice little update on this part. Like I said, item guides are going to be out tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be starting with how items work and item drops and carousel picks. Then it's going to be diminishing returns, and then after that, it's going to be about carry stacking and item pairing, which should be a fun video. It's going to be a little 3-part series. Maybe I'll add like a little 4th part, which will be like, you know, extra stuff, but that should bring us to next week's best comps and patch updates, because there's gonna be a patch next Wednesday. So that's what we're looking forward to for the next week of content. Thanks for sitting by while we do some of these more for fun stuff during this week, and as I work on those other videos and things. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. See ya. Bye bye.